It's International Women's Day, and I've got a very special podcast today on One Leg Up with Alex Garrett, featuring, of course, the strongest woman I know, my mom, Lori Sue Brockway. Then we go and hear from my grandmother, Dee Dee, just a little sound clip from her 2007 retirement party in the Bronx. And then we turn to my fiance, Gabriella Pisani. I love her very much. Hear what she's got to say about being a godmother. And then, of course, sticking with women in media, Joni Pelzer, Ann Lagori, what's the story? And then we get to hear from a very special woman who's impacted my life for a long time, Mama Pat Jordan. Now on my Instagram, AlexGNYC1, I call Mom a super mom. And that's because she is more than just my mom. She is a kick-ass journalist. She is a writer, always writing and blogging. And of course, she's now on her way to become a master's degree recipient. And I am so proud of her every step of the way, through every challenge she's faced. She's been strong through it all. And I want to share a little bit from our podcast on Mother's Day 2021, maybe finding out why Superman to become her idol, if you will.
You know, I had an early relationship in which there was some bad stuff happening. And I took Superman on as my fictional hero, as a way of protecting myself because I felt like I was in danger. And every time I looked at Superman, I would just get into the pose of Superman, see him standing there in we still have the Superman poster that it was a 6 foot poster. I had them cut it out and post it on poster board. And I felt like it really helped me. And when you were born, when I was pregnant, I was using, the energy of Superman that gave me good vibes, and a feeling in safety. And then I remember my water broke while I was watching Superman, the first movie. And look, just as Superman swooped to pick up Lois.
What was it like to have this career put on hold?
Back when you were born, I was still an active media person. And, people in media who were friends of mine would ask me to tell your story. And I remember I ran into my editor at Child Magazine, who about 2 weeks after you were born, and I had an assignment due to them, but she said she saw me and your father out at this luncheon. She said, "You must have nerves of steel to be out today with your son in the hospital." And I said, "Well, we're just trying to continue to live our lives so that he lives his life when he's born. We'll go see him later, but instead of just sitting in the hospital the whole time, we're still continuing to try to keep my work going and stuff like that." So there were a few things that we did. We were invited onto this cable show when you were very small. I can't remember the name of it. I just remember they sent a limo for us, and we talked about your early birth experience. I found that a lot of my friends didn't understand. They were used to me being out there and available and fun and running around. And, a lot of people thought that I was putting too much energy into you, that I was taking too much time. And they didn't understand what it was like to have a baby who was in the NICU for 77 days and then take them home with all this medical equipment and learn how to be a nurse after not being a nurse. So I felt I was a little bit isolated in that regard. I did the best I could because I was a freelance writer. I started my own news service, which I tried to keep going. Your dad babysat for you a lot. He took you to work with him so I could write. There was a time where I just had to completely change my schedule. You used to go to bed at 2 a.m. and wake up at 6 at one point. So I would get up. So I would work from 2 to like 5:45, and then I would get up with you at 6. So I was working in the middle of the night. I just did whatever I had to do to get the work done. You know, your dad watched you in those early years, so I was able to do, because I had to travel for work, so I was able to do some of that. But we wanted to keep doing what we were doing so that you would have a model for people who are working and, doing good work, even in difficult circumstances. I did not know about any of the things that you were born with. I hadn't heard of any of them before. And, as a reporter, I remember, I forced them to take me into this room where the NICU doctor came to evaluate you. And they didn't want to take me out of my bed because I'd lost a lot of blood during childbirth. And I said, you are rolling me into that room. And I forced them to bring me in there so I could see you, because they kind of took you out of my arms within just a few moments of your birth. And, because there were a number of problems that they detected early on. And when the NICU doctor was explaining all these things to me, I was just, wait a minute, I need my reporter's pad. I need to write these down. And, and then they took you to another hospital, and I had to stay at the hospital I was in for 2 full days. And so the minute they let me out, we went running to St. Luke's Roosevelt. And, it was, I just couldn't wait to see you. And the minute I saw you, I just sat by your bedside and touched your head, and you were in an open isolate. So I was able to do that. And then in a very short amount of time, you had major surgery within 12 hours of being born. So they put you in, what we used to call an isolate, which is an enclosed plastic container for babies. And it has a little hole in the side where you can put your hand in. And at the time, I was friendly through my friend Lexi, who was dear friends with Dr. Lee Salk, who was the famous baby doctor. I knew him through my work with Lexi, and I called him and I told him that my son was in a NICU and I was not allowed to hold him because they wouldn't let me take you out. They wouldn't let me hold you in my arms. And I told him that I was so afraid that you were going to be traumatized by this early birth experience where you wouldn't be able to bond with me. And he said to me, just go to the isolate every single day and touch him wherever you can, touch his hand, touch his head, put your hand in the isolate, talk to him, tell him that you're there, sing to him, and just, be there with him. And that's what your father and I did every single day.
Tell us about my grandmother's impact on you and, your mom and what she was like, and then what she was like as a grandmother to your kid.
Well, my mother, Shirley, was a remarkable person. She lived until 100. And she didn't have her first fall until she was 90, where she broke her hip and her arm. And I got her into the Margaret Tietz, which is just a few blocks from our house, so that I could see her every day and so that you could see her every day.
And Mom, I would say she helped you become Lori Sue Brockway. Happy International Women's Day, Mom. And speaking of my grandmother, here she is on International Women's Day.
You know that I love a microphone. I want to thank my son-in-law, Stan, my good-looking son-in-law, and my beautiful daughter. One is working and could not get away. She works for Channel 5. For Fox, they wouldn't let her go today. My granddaughter, Jessica, sitting there. And my beautiful little great-granddaughter who doesn't even talk to me. She won't speak to me. I thank my family for coming up. I really am surprised. And that's also through Petra's arrangement. One is in California, she couldn't come. And the other one's working, but I'm glad for the one
dozens of grandchildren.
Oh, I have to thank my 12 grandchildren and my 15 great-grandchildren. So if you believe I'm only 39, okay, I have a wonderful family, and you have been my second family.
Those are the two strongest women in my life to this day. I know Dee Dee's looking on at both of us, my mom and I, and our entire family, on this day, March 8th, 2024. Now, of course, I want to get to my lady in red, Gabriella Pisani, with this reminder that, she is the godmother of all, and I am so proud to call her my fiance.
Whether it's the Super Bowl, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, New Year's Eve, my seat. Front row, my seat. And why is that? Yes, I'm the godmother. VIP seating.
Gabby, keep being you. Don't ever change. And by the way, she'd want me to remind you that she was completely sober on Super Bowl Sunday. That was just off the cuff, and I had to get that on tape. Isn't that great? And I just got off the phone with her before I put this up, and she wanted you to know there was also a joke. Now to the women in media. Of course, I want to start out with my everyday colleague at AM 970 The Answer, Miss Joni Pelzer. Joni, welcome to the show, One Leg Up on International Women's Day.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you on a very special day, which is kind of a national holiday.
Well, you are executive producer of a couple of shows on radio and on AM 970 The Answer, of course, but I want to know more about Joni and what this day means to you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I love working with you, Alex. It's a pleasure, and I love your podcast. So, International Women's Day, it feels odd that we have to have one day for women. Like, women do
That's
a
why
lot.
it's a whole month, too. You're right about that.
Yeah, it's just like, why is it a day or a month? Why can't it just be equality for everybody? It just kind of sometimes feels awkward that we have to have a day as opposed to just a living situation. I was in the Peace Corps in Russia, and for 2 years, unfortunately, I haven't been able to go back, especially because of what's going on. But when I was in Russia in the Peace Corps, it is a national holiday. Everyone takes the day off. Everyone shares stories and sweets and flowers with each other, not just men giving women or they giving they, but women giving women. And it's really a special, beautiful way of just celebrating who we are and how far we've come. But the fact that we had to come this far is what kind of, I can't help but say, oh, it gets me a little bit. Recently, my mom came into the city and spent some time with me, and I really wanted to celebrate who she was and who she's made me become and how it came from her family. My grandma on both sides, both grandmas, Grandma Lil on my dad's side and Grandma Josephine on my mom's side, were both extremely strong women. I mean, my grandmother on my dad's side changed her name when she was 18. She was Mary Elizabeth, and she changed it to Lil when she was 18. Who does that at that time? And then my other grandma, she was actually Josephine, but my grandpa called her Joni, which is how I got my name. And both strong, powerful women who didn't let the world stop them. They didn't have huge careers. They were all about taking care of their families. And that was what was important to them, taking care of people. And my mom is just an amazing woman. So are many of the women I'm surrounded with, my neighbors, my women that I work with at the theater, women I work with at the radio station, at the law firm, at Gotham. It's just an incredible way to be. And Gabby, by the way, and your fiance, Gabby, amazing woman as well. And it's nice to be able to celebrate. I just wish it didn't have to be that it was not because we were equal. You know what I mean?
Well, and I know in radio, you're always at it as a producer. And how is that job for you as a producer? Talk about that, because I know it's challenges at times.
It's phenomenal. It is challenging. Everything in life is challenging. If it's worth it, it's challenging. Every day is different, which is what's nice. The thing that sometimes gets you is you're listening to the news every day, and the news is not always positive. So listening to the news every day to try and give bits and pieces and find the stories that you want to tell and the way you want to tell it, and find the guests you want to tell those stories with. Sometimes you want to turn off and you don't want to have to hear what's going on in the world. So that's the only thing I would say that's a challenge is that not always being able to turn off. But, I do take the days like we all do. We all try to turn off and take that time. But I love being a producer. I love being able to get my voice in there, not only with me talking, but with the content that I'm helping produce. It's a challenge and it's a gift at the same time. I just love what I do. It's something I feel like I was always meant to do and been doing since I was a little kid and then in college. And I just didn't want to go live somewhere else to be able to do it. I wanted to stay in New York where my family is. And so now I've got that opportunity. I actually produced my own show for 6 years. It was a once a week show on an internet radio station called talkradio.nyc with Sam Leibowitz. And he and I did it for 6 years. I had one host and then a different host with me. And we ended up doing it after a while. At the end, we ended up doing it in my apartment because then COVID hit. So that was exciting.
Well,
and now
I'm glad you mentioned
now
that
I get this platform.
I wanted to know when your personality really started to shape. Was it when you're like 5 years old, 6 years old? Like I feel like you were born with this personality of upbeat and always positive, Joni.
Aw, thank you. I appreciate that because you're the man that I always see, Alex, as the glass half full. The glass is never half empty when I see or talk to you. And that's such a gift. And you've been handed a lot of challenges in life, which you turned into gifts. And I know it's with the help of your mom, which is a blessing, and your dad, your two dads, your biological dad and then your naturalized dad. Mine, it's funny. Mine actually, the first memory of feeling strong and powerful came when I was in grade school, and I was cast as the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland. And I'm on stage. My grandmother made my gorgeous costume for me. She was a seamstress. She had arthritis in her hands. They were bent because of arthritis, but she was still sewing and making things for me. And I had a scepter with a heart on top made of wood. And I was saying, off with her head. And I hit that scepter into the air. And the heart flew into the audience. And the show must go on, and it did. But I realized that act of throwing my hands in the air made me feel powerful. And I think that's kind of where it started. And I want to say that was first or second grade. Yeah, it was
I want to ask
pretty
you this
exciting.
real quick. You have your AMT theater as well. Does that help you with your expression? I know you're a little more behind the scenes, but you get on that stage as well, right?
I have been on the stage since the Queen of Hearts, actually, even before that, when I was a little kid doing shows in the basement with dolls and with friends. AMT Theater is very special to me. We're on 45th Street and 9th Avenue, amttheater.org. And it's a gift to have this theater. It's an off-Broadway community. We just recently had a huge benefit with Bobby Moresco, who won the Academy Award with Paul Haggis for Crash, for writing Crash and directing. And then Colin Quinn, the famous SNL star comedian who has had shows on Broadway with Bobby Moresco. They've done it together. And then Dan Lauria from the Wonder Years. He stepped up and he emceed the event, talking about how important it is to have a theater that's not just spectacle and not just big shows, but it really develops shows. And that's what we try to do at AMT Theater. And I know you've been there with us. It's a special place where we can do things to help the community. We have children's theater and classes. We have adult theater and classes. You don't have to be a professional to come there and be part of a community. And we've ingrained ourselves in the community, in not only the local community, but in the theater community. And we're also members of the Broadway Association, which our mutual friend, Christine Nicholas, runs. And we're so grateful to be part of that. And the Broadway Association is not just about Broadway. It's about the theater community and what makes business affect the theater community. And we love it. We love being part of it. We go to every luncheon that they have, and they support us full on. What's nice about our space is that anyone can come and use it. We now have video screen. We have a beautiful screen. We're going to be running films. We're actually going to do a wonderful evening. I can't announce it yet when, but Bobby Moresco is going to show some of his films. He was $1 Million Baby and Crash. So we're going to have a night of Bobby Moresco
for that, right? They're going to tune in to 970.
Yeah, they're going to have to hear that. Yep. Or your podcast. We'll give you a little exclusive. But yeah, for me, it's a gift. I do get to get on stage. I've auditioned for things. I've done things. I've emceed. I love both sides of the house. I'm not the best at project managing it. I'm the best at marketing it and being that connector person. So when we do an event or we do a show, I'm the one that brings it all together and says, yes, this is, and getting excited. This is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it. And you guys got to get involved. And I know people love that energy. So I can't help myself. It is who I am. Like it or not, it is who I am.
Joni, you have a lot of friends. I'm sure a lot of those friends might have a daughter that wants to break into media. So as a woman in media, what's your message to those that are coming up through the ranks of you that want to be where you're at as a producer on the radio? What's your message today?
Say yes and take a chance at anything, even if it's not what you think you want to do, because you don't know until you try it. And it's always an experience. You get an experience by doing something. And once you do it, you can say whether or not you still want to do that, but at least try it because you don't know. I never knew if I wanted to produce something until I tried producing. And then I realized what I like about it. And then I do those things that I'm good at. And what I don't like about it, I find people to help me.
Well, there you go. Joan Pelzer with a lot of wisdom today. Thank you as always. And I know you have a social media page. Plug that for us to follow you at.
Oh my gosh, my social media is not very good lately because I do it for other people, but you can find me at JoanPelzerNYC.
Well, thanks for joining me on International Women's Day, and we'll see you on the radio, Joni.
Thank you, Alex G. You're the best.
Always a pleasure, Joni, and we'll talk tonight on the radio, I'm sure. But staying with women in media, I want to now get to a longtime friend, Ann Liguori. She's been a big supporter of the Viscardi Center, not just at the center, but on radio with WFAN. What's the story, Ann Liguori? She actually gave me a bit of a backstory on how her sports career and her journalistic career intertwine. You were an athlete as well, and maybe those who follow your journalistic career maybe don't know that you had the sports career as well. Tell us about that.
Sure. So, yeah, I was always very athletic. In junior high, there were no sports. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. And when I was a kid, all the guys pretty much in the neighborhood would come, and we had a big backyard, and we'd play sports in the backyard. I had an older brother, and a lot of times I was the first one picked to play on the baseball in the games, whatever we played, kickball, baseball, softball, whatever, because I could run faster back then, right? So I was always used to competing with the guys. And then I got to junior high, and there were no sports for girls. It was so disheartening. There was just nothing but cheerleading. And so we organized a track team, and my dad drove us around to all these track events with the Amateur Athletic Union, and we organized a team from my school, and we competed in track. And then I played tennis. We joined a club, and I was able to take tennis lessons and play a lot of tennis. But this was all independent of school. But by the time I got to high school, Title IX had passed a couple of years later. And finally, there were varsity sports programs for girls. So in the fall, I played volleyball. In the winter, I played basketball. And in the spring, I did both track for the girls' track team. I was a sprinter and a long jumper. And then I also played tennis on the guys' team. We were able to double when our schedules, didn't conflict. We were able to double in two sports back then. So I played number one tennis my senior year on the boys' tennis team because we still didn't have a girls' team back then. And then I also ran track for the girls' team. So, earned 16 varsity titles in high school, and was quite busy, as you can imagine. But it was really good training, I think, to do what I'm doing now.
How'd you end up in the journalism world after doing all these sports that you had done?
I always wanted to be a broadcaster. I always wanted to. That was my first love. I never had any. I didn't even know you could become a professional. Back then the opportunities were kind of slow coming for girls. Now it would be a whole different story because girls grow up with all these opportunities and just become athletes, which I think is great. But back then we didn't really have those opportunities. But I always wanted to be a broadcaster, and I thought with my athletic background, I would go into sports. And basically that's what I did. I studied broadcast journalism at the University of South Florida in Tampa, and then came to New York right out of college on a fellowship program that was sponsored by the International Radio and TV Society. And I came up out of college and basically never left. So I started my career in Manhattan. Can you believe it? And here I am. I'm still going strong, I hope, knock on wood.
Oh, yeah. And you know what they say? If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But, you just talked about a while ago how there were no sports for girls. I've got to ask you this, because Augusta finally opened up to women. And when you first got that news, what was your reaction?
Well, that happened a number of years ago, Alex, when they opened up. And Condoleezza Rice was one of the first. There were 3 in her class, one of the first women to be asked to join Augusta National. So, yeah, I was very thrilled that was the case. I had been working there for years at that point, and to cover golf at a club where women members were not allowed was very awkward and uncomfortable. But I have to say, they always treated me wonderfully at Augusta National, but obviously it's much better now that they have women members. Now they're not going to promote who their members are and how many more they've added since, because it's a private club and they feel that it's nobody's business. But sure. I'm glad that we do know that there are a few female members, and Pine Valley in New Jersey had said just a couple weeks ago. I remember talking about this on my Talking Golf show on WFAN. Pine Valley, New Jersey said that they were going to open up their doors to women members. So there are still quite a few clubs out there that that have a restricted membership. I'm glad that Pine Valley, New Jersey, which is, it's many times voted the #1 golf course in the country by Golf Digest and other golf publications. And it's good to hear that they are opening up their doors to female members as well.
All right. I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this. I'm sure they have. What's your favorite course to play golf? And if you do play tennis, have you ever played in any of the big, tournament, courts, like in Roland Garros or Wimbledon or even the U.S. Open?
Funny that you ask, because in tennis, when I was in college, I had this bizarre experience where I was able to get on the practice courts at Wimbledon. My girlfriend and I were studying in a summer college program, studying abroad in London. And we picked up our tennis rackets and put tennis clothes on, and we were going to go to Wimbledon and watch tennis. Now, why we thought we'd have to bring our rackets is really, just to me, all these years later, very amusing. But we're on the way, in London, they call it the Tube. And this young British guy came up to us, and he saw pictures of ourselves on our way to Wimbledon, and he said, "You want me to take your photo?" And we said, sure. So we gave him our camera, and he took pictures of us. So we started talking to him. And he said, and we said, well, we're going to Wimbledon. And he said, well, you have tickets? And we said, no. We thought we'd just queue and buy tickets. He said, oh, well, that might take you days and days to sit in that line, and you probably won't be able to get tickets because they sell out. He said, I am a member of the All England Club. Why don't you come in as my guest? Can you imagine this stroke of luck? I mean, this is just so bizarre. As we're riding the subway out to Wimbledon, we went in as his guest during the Wimbledon tournament, and we ate in the Players Lounge, and we watched matches, and then he even said we could go and play on the courts out there, the players' courts, and the practice courts, and sitting next to us was Billie Jean King and Tracy Austin.
Well, that was a great conversation with Ann Liguori. You can find the full version in the description below with the full podcast from that weekend. But I want to also let you know she's got a book out. That's right. She's got a book out, and I suggest you get it. It's called Life on the Green, Lessons and Wisdom from Legends of Golf. And by the way, great timing for the show today, because if you're in the area tomorrow in Palm Beach, Ann Liguori will be at Palm Beach Par 3 Golf Course with a book signing 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturday, March 9th. That's at 2345 South Ocean Boulevard. Go and meet Ann and greet Ann and get to know what her story is behind What's the Story, Ann Liguori. And speaking of green, it is St. Patrick's Day month, and we got to include another woman that's been impactful in my life from a very young age, Mama Pat Jordan. Let's hear what she's got to say about the games, about the Irish trip, and being Mama Pat.
I don't think people realize how important these games are to these children. The ones that go on, like you were there every year, right? How many years were you there? Every year?
Every year. Yeah, minus 2009. Let me get that on the record because of H1N1. Viscardi could not compete that year, but basically,
that's right.
Every year. And I got to say, do you know that you've impacted this generation, like my generation of athletes, Brianna, myself,
you're gonna make me cry,
Shane, Addie, all of us. Like your experience like this changed so many lives.
Don't say that. You're gonna make me cry. It was my pleasure, though, and it was my fun, and it's all the same people who've been doing this for years and years. These games, like Susie Ryan is still there every year, right?
Yeah, Susan Gordon Ryan. We got Sue Maxwell, of course.
She was the one that started it, right? She did. And so many of the volunteers have been there since the beginning, right? 30 years. We were volunteering for 30 years.
Wow.
That was 2 years ago, though.
Well, let me ask you.
If we could, but we can't.
When you guys started the Physical Sound Irish American youth team, did you think of it longevity-wise, or did you take it year by year?
No. Let me tell you that first year. Want to hear a story that first year?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I hope you have a long podcast here. Patricia. Patricia, my daughter?
Yes, yep.
She and Margaret both worked for Susie Ryan. And this guy, Susie met this guy at one of the Friendly Sons things. And she was telling about the games and all. And he said, he could get some kids from Ireland together and bring them over. All right? So, sure, why not? And he did. And then they got here, and Susie asked Patricia if she would stay with them for I guess they were here 2 weeks then. I don't remember. And, show them around, do different things with them. She sure, why not? So off she went to Hofstra. Now, I was away that weekend. I think it was Memorial Day weekend, as a matter of fact. And I was away, all right? And I come home, and I went to cook dinner, and I said to Ed, I think somebody robbed our house. Because all my pots were gone. My knives and my forks and most of my plates. She took everything to Hofstra. She said, Mom, they don't have anything. We got to eat, I had nothing in my kitchen, Alex.
Oh, my gosh.
And then she goes up and she says, can we have your refrigerator? She did for the 2 weeks. Can we have my refrigerator? Give me a break. But we did give them a refrigerator that we had in the garage. And that's what started Patricia being involved with the Irish team, right?
That's
and at that point, I wasn't involved with them. I was involved because I was still working at Viscardi, and I was more involved with the games. Because Susie Ryan is Ed's cousin, by the way, just for the record. So, we're all in this together, right? So that's how it started. And then as I started getting a little bit involved with them and a little bit more, because I'd see them more at the games. And then at night, I'd go over to whatever they were doing. And then when I retired, and Patricia by that time had Connor, I said, all right, I'll do it, So we started staying at Hofstra, and it was a great run, let me tell you. We had a lot of fun. We met a lot of nice people. We had a lot of laughs. We used to laugh sometimes till our sides hurt, a lot of times, as you know. Yeah. And then after a few years of them coming, they said, well, how about we go over to Ireland and take some kids? So the first group was about 5 kids. I do believe Megan Kutiri was one of them.
Yeah, she was involved with that, yep.
Yes, but we had no money, right? So that we would stay down in south of Wexford in the school, for the spina bifida school it was. And we'd sleep in the classrooms. And we'd eat in the dining hall. We had no money for anything. The only transportation we had was the police, the guards. They would drive us around in their vans. We couldn't. But then when Broderick came along and started raising all that money, we thought we were rich. We got vans up here. Because up here, if you remember, I shouldn't maybe say that, where we got our vans from, but the PAL gave us vans to use for the 2 weeks. so we could get around.
Wow, that's...
It all started a little bit, and then it grew, and
How many kids did they send over their first year competing here?
I think about 10, maybe. I'd have to ask Patricia. But I think about 10, right? And then the chaperones, and they do all the cooking and everything at Hofstra. Hofstra was very good to us. They used to charge us, and they don't charge us anymore. Well, we don't come anymore. But they stopped charging the games, which is good.
So there you have it. 6 influential women who have had an impact on my life over the last 30 years. Love you, Mom. Miss you, Dee Dee. Love you. Gabby, I love you so much. And I'm so glad, as I said earlier, to call you my fiance. You get us through thick and thin because you are strong. Joni, my goodness, I always love working with you daily at AM 970 The Answer. Ann Ligori, what's the story? And, of course, you can meet her tomorrow in Palm Beach. That'll be pretty cool. And get her book on Amazon. And Mama Pat, hope to see you at the games this year once again. And to all the women out there, including my aunts. And, of course, my sister Abby. Love you, sister. Hope you're doing well. And happy International Women's Day to you as well. And, of course, to all the women out there, happy International Women's Day. And keep rocking the world.